Hey, welcome to Gracie Schwartzwald. I'm here with Erkan Mete, and today we're going to go over a topic which Erkan and I wanted to discuss. And
it's about if Jiu-Jitsu is effective against multiple opponents. We got the question, right?
Right, yeah, and this is a question that if you train Jiu-Jitsu, you'll get throughout your Jiu-Jitsu career, sometimes not even as a question, more as an accusation, like Jiu-Jitsu is useless against multiple opponents, sort of as a gotcha kind of statement about Jiu-Jitsu. And sadly, even Jiu-Jitsu black belts and instructors will say this. And my view is actually Jiu-Jitsu is the best art against multiple opponents. And so we'll explain why here. So the one thing I've seen, which is always depressing to me, is Jiu-Jitsu instructors or Jiu-Jitsu practitioners who say Jiu-Jitsu is useless for fighting in the streets, it's useless for multiple opponents, it's useless against weapons, it's useless to deal with strikes. And this is sad because it shows a lack of their instruction. They have a very incomplete training, and this comes from basically just probably training in a sort of a competition, sport-focused program that leaves out all those things. But just because they don't train all those things doesn't mean those things don't exist in the art. So why do people often think that it's useless against multiple opponents? It's very simple. Because what in most people's minds, and even in a lot of Jiu-Jitsu people's minds, what is Jiu-Jitsu? Can I get you to lay down?
Jiu-Jitsu is ground fighting.
It's ground fighting, and even more, it's as much as possible on your back. Well, obviously against multiple opponents, that's a horrible place to be. And if you can only train ground fighting and, mostly being on your back, but even if you're on top, if you train at Jiu-Jitsu as a predominantly or even exclusively ground fighting style, of course it's bad for multiple opponents, okay? But that is not Jiu-Jitsu, okay? So why do I think it's the best for multiple opponents? Okay, first let's cover one very important idea. Let's say leaving out Jiu-Jitsu, what would you say is the best martial art for, if you had 5 people attacking you that you needed to beat all those 5 people up, which one would work?
Well,
none of them.
None of them.
Right? Anybody who tells you that their martial art can fight multiple opponents is selling you something, right? Now, you will see it sometimes in schools because it's a situation of, all right, you come at me with a straight punch and I'm gonna, and then you come at me with a hook and I'll do this, and then you come at me, and it's very choreographed, and they're doing this one at a time. People are only trying to hit you. You know exactly what's coming, and I hit you once and you fall down.
Yeah, it's choreographed.
It's very choreographed.
Or sometimes, like in the Filipino martial arts, we do the same against multiple opponents, but the reason is not fighting against multiple opponents, it's to train your footwork. Yes,
and don't get me wrong, that kind of training is useful. I used to use it a lot for my Jiu-Jitsu people, right? The idea of you're gonna fight one person, you're gonna then deal with how to move. And that is where, what he just said is what is the reason Jiu-Jitsu is, for me, the best for multiple opponents, counterintuitively, is one, there's a large standing self-defense and fight aspect to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. If you're not training it, you should be. And part of it is there's 4 things I say about controlling in every conflict. Distance, angle, timing, and pace, right? Whether you're on the ground or whether you're standing. So when you're training stand-up, a big part, even just for beginners, of standing self-defense and stand-up in Jiu-Jitsu is what? Distance management, right? Learning to hear. Now notice, there's a very important thing. There's a vast difference between surviving a fight against 5 people and maybe getting out of it alive and fighting 5 people. Right? So a lot of martial arts to say, oh, we're self-defense. What is the self-defense for them? Bam, bam, right? Kick you in the groin, tear your eyes out, knock you out. That's not self-defense. That's fighting. That's me trying to beat everybody up that's around me. Okay. Self-defense is, I try to avoid taking damage. I put myself in the safest positions as possible. I exit the conflict as soon as possible. If I can't exit, I put myself in positions where I can be harmed the least. So this is why, for instance, in self-defense, we don't stand right here in the pocket. Bop, 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 bop. There's too much chaos going on. And again, if I assume you're bigger, stronger, faster, you're going to win that. A lot of our distance is what? Keeping here. And if I come after you, what are you doing? You're keeping me away. You're moving. You're framing me off. Right? Our footwork is crucial. Right? You should practice this all the time. What is something I have you guys do all the time? Let's say you grab my wrist, right? I break the control. What does I do once I get distance?
Yeah. You look around.
You look around. You train yourself to look around. Okay, so there's a complete system there of always being aware of potential other opponents.
It's called sanction, right?
Right.
It's one of the big points.
Right. Now, if you can't move your footwork around, what is a big part of, at least here, Gracie Schwartzwald, that we work on? Clinch fighting and framing standing, right? So if I'm trying to grab you, you're framing me off, you're here, you're working here. If I do grab you, you're framing, breaking the holds. So it's not even just the footwork. Even without the footwork, if I get close, he can start to frame me off, block me off, redirect me as he moves here, okay? So it's not that we're gonna stand here in the pocket, but a lot of our training is our footwork of maintaining a safe distance, which is, again, not here in the pocket. And if he does start to get close to me, I'm starting to frame him off here using our positions. Notice I keep enough distance now that if there is an opening, I can get away. Okay, so could a potential high-level boxer knock out 5 people quickly? Yeah. Okay. Is every person on the street going to be a, Bernard Hopkins? No.
No.
Okay. So you can't say, well, be an elite boxer, be a Gennady Golovkin, otherwise, too bad, you can't defend yourself. You have to learn a style that will allow you to stay safe and get away. And again, that's going to be a large part of our training is learning how to do our footwork, learning how to manage distances with our footwork and with our frames, and posting off, using the pizzelle, other techniques to stop them controlling you. Because here's the truth. You may get 5 guys jumping you. But what even happens in a one-on-one fight after a couple seconds with punches? What often happens? Yeah, people grab, right? They're going to grab you, and then what often are they going to do?
Try to throw you on the ground.
Throw you on the ground, right? If they don't knock you out the first few seconds, often they're going to grab you in a headlock, throw you on the ground, or pick you up, slam you, something. When you have 5 people, the chance of that happening is raised exponentially. So people think it's going to be I kick you in the groin, I poke you in the eyes, I elbow you in the face like in a movie. But often, I'm dealing with one person here, maybe another person grabs me, throws me to the ground, okay? If you train enough, learning how to frame, learning how to break holds, right, you have a much better chance, not a great chance, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie to you like some artists will. But you have the chance to break holds. Right, I grab him, he's able to break the grips off here, he's able to frame me off, he's able to push another person off, get the distance, be aware of his surroundings. So we've done drills before, in my old school we did a lot of what guys have to run to the open door after you frame people off. Versus sitting here thinking that the 5 guys are just going to stand around you trying to all punch you. Because once they put you on the ground,
they will kick you.
That's what happens, right?
Yeah. They will kill you almost.
Yep. Now, why does Gracie Jiu-Jitsu focus so much on ground fighting?
Because it's a bad position.
Because it's a bad position. Why do we focus being on our backs in Jiu-Jitsu? Not because we want to be there, right? That's a complete, one of the greatest fallacies about Jiu-Jitsu, right? We want to lay on our back. No, it's because we recognize being on our back on the ground is the worst place to be in a fight. Okay, so we make it a position that we can survive from, potentially even be a threat, but mostly survive from and then get up and get away if possible, right? If you train with me, we focus a lot on getting up, sweeping, getting on top. So if you did happen to get knocked down, you have enough people getting up off the ground. Who has the better chance of potentially getting back to their feet? A karate person, a Krav Maga person, or a Jiu-Jitsu person who practices getting up all the time?
Yeah.
Correctly, against good grapplers, against people trying to keep them down,
Yeah.
and dealing with kicks as well. So again, there's wrestling and judo are also very good at all of these things. What's the difference? Is they don't train to deal with
punches,
with kicks, things like that, right? Whereas we do. Okay, so if you end up on the ground, Jiu-Jitsu is still the one art that's going to be the most likely to help you get back up. I'm not saying it's a high percentage chance, but I'd certainly rather have that than something that's teaching me to try to, do some sort of nerve pinch or punch my way off my back. We would have to, our skills of, using the legs to create the distance, getting back in a way that I can't be tackled back down, right?
Yeah, that's right. And if I can tell you the story, I trained 2 weeks ago with a karate black belt. Nice guy, very phenomenal martial artist, and we were talking about this issue. And we tried it out. So he was lying on his back, and I just do light kicks, and his own goal, the only goal he had was getting up without pushed back down again.
Right.
And he never trained that.
Right.
And what happened? He was not able to get up.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to train that to have it as a reflex.
And we train it
You train it all
quite a
the
bit.
time.
Yeah. Now, if you're training Jiu-Jitsu and you're not training this, then learning how to stand, how to move around, how to frame, how to keep your balance, how to clinch fight, how to break clinches, how to get back back to your feet when somebody is standing, when somebody's trying to push you down, when somebody's maybe trying to kick you or hit you. If you don't practice that, it doesn't matter that you're practicing Jiu-Jitsu, right? You're just going to be as incapable at those skill sets as somebody untrained, right? So not all Jiu-Jitsu is the same, right?
That's right.
So for these reasons, right, I think Jiu-Jitsu, again, if you just define Jiu-Jitsu as us two laying on the ground, rolling around.
That's just a small part of Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and of course it's going to be useless for multiple opponents. Every martial art, every additional opponent becomes much more difficult, okay? But again, the art that is the most focused on a safety mindset through position, right? That's how you, on the ground, standing, that's our main focus, is using positional control to maintain safety or to control you. An art that is focused so heavily on that has the best chance of surviving multiple opponents.
Yeah.
I know personally because part of my training at one point was having to do a lot of stand-up clinch against multiple opponents, not getting taken down. In fact, under Greg Thompson, you have to do that blindfolded, right? So there's a lot of, just immediate reaction, knowing how to frame rather than having to see these sorts of things.
Maybe we should also say to the viewer that this is not something you made up with your experience. This is
Right.
really part of Jiu-Jitsu.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Most of the people think that Jiu-Jitsu is, you have some stand-up, but 99% it's on the ground and you don't have any self-defense at all. That's not true.
Right.
There is a big self-defense program in it, which is very, I say, traditional, which was taught from Elio till today.
Right. I tell this story before, but when I was training, when I was going through the combatives course on Fort Bragg, and there was a guy there who'd trained Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil, but obviously more of a sport-focused or competition-focused. And he saw me doing some clinch work and some striking with some of the instructors. And he asked me, he said, "Where'd you learn all that?" And I said, "Jiu-Jitsu." And he goes, "No, that's not Jiu-Jitsu." I said, "Yeah, it is." He goes, "Well, it must be a new addition to Jiu-Jitsu." I said, "No, the new addition was taking that stuff out."
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
So, I think, again, the number one, whenever somebody gets in this argument, they'll always come back to this. Well, just avoid the conflict. Right? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Any art that, one of the biggest things for Jiu-Jitsu is as you mentioned, right, is Zanshin, being aware
Yeah.
so that you don't get into these conflicts. I always have a saying, the only fight you'll ever lose is the fight you're in, right? If you can avoid being in the fight, you'll be out. So yes, that is a huge part of jiu-jitsu. We talked about the safety mindset. The safest you'll ever be is avoiding the conflict.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't happen. The next best thing you have to do is train a martial art that is focused on controlling position, right? To give me all the advantages of safety and take away all his advantages, right? Again, an art that's focused on fighting as equals, right? We're here, doing all this or whatever here. It's great as a sport,
As an art.
as an art even, but not as in my mind, not as a self-defense system, because it's again, I have to be just so much better than you to make up for your physical attributes. And again, there's so much chaos, and chance plays such a big factor that there's still always the chance that I'm going to, and then of course if you have multiple people.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, one other big point, in my opinion, is your art. Are you able to train your art realistically?
Yes.
So if you just have poking eyes and grabbing the groin or kicking the groin, you cannot train that realistically. Even
No.
if you have a blue max
Right. Yeah.
protector,
Right.
the partner, your training partner, just pretends to be hurt.
Right.
So no, this is not the case in Jiu-Jitsu. In Jiu-Jitsu, you can train realistically without hurting your partner because you can
Right.
control the techniques. And when we train often that that you try to defend yourself or I try to defend myself. We do not just punch and wait.
Right.
So we punch, we clinch, and you try to break up and stuff like that, and we're still able to control the distance, control the fight, take the fight maybe to the ground or finish it in standing.
Right.
So, and this is just possible if your techniques are not dangerous.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah. So that is, yeah, again, the reason people who train jiu-jitsu feel so confident is simply because
They train as they fight.
they train as they fight, right? Again, it's not if you spend all your time training choreography, you can look very good. And again, this is how many schools will sell you, right? You throw a hook and bah, right? I look fast, I look amazing, right? But it was choreography.
Yeah, you know what I want to do, and the distance is right. There is no aggression.
Right. But it's a whole different matter. If I knew that you were going to throw a punch, but I didn't know what punch you were going to throw, if I was smart, what would I do? Yeah, I'd come in right to the clinch. I'm not going to stand here and hope that I can do this, because you're going to throw an uppercut instead of a hook.
That's right.
You're going to throw a knee, and I'm not going to know what's going to happen. So why not skip all that, jump straight to an art that's focused on understanding how to put yourself, again, positionally in a safe place. Okay. So hopefully this helps explain why jiu-jitsu is not the worst martial art for multiple opponents. It's the best martial art for multiple opponents.